Hi guys, Jay Smith here, welcome to AskGolfNut channel. Today we're going to be talking about these things, tees, either plastic ones, wooden ones or anything else like that. Now there's plenty of videos on the internet saying about what's the perfect tee height, etc. Now there's always this idea that you should always use a tee. Now I've just done a video when it comes to this series which I've got from Stats to Strokes, which basically looks into the statistics, the analytics, the strokes gain side of golf, and we discussed on that one tees. Now it is true for an amateur golfer, when you're looking at mid to high handicap, absolutely, categorically, it's always better for you to use a tee, because through Arcos data you can see for the 800 or so million shots when amateurs use tees, they're actually on average throughout their whole entire bag, from lob wedge to 3-wood driver sometimes, which they use on par 3s depending on how far they hit it, they're about 12 yards longer on average, and they actually increase their greens in regulation by 5% for free, just using a tee. But for me, and also what I've noticed for better players as well, or for players which exhibit better player tendencies of strike, actually using one of these can be detrimental in certain ways. So I'm going to do a test. By the side of me, I have my own 3-wood, I have my own bladed 7-iron, and I have my own bladed gap wedge. Now I'm going to do a test where I hit the gap wedge 7-iron 3-wood with a tee and without a tee, to showcase what happens when I personally use a specific tee. This tee is 8mm thick, which is give or take a millimetre less than 3/8 of an inch, something like that. And so I'll be doing the test with that. Personally, if I use a tee, I'm one of these people which do the classic, if I'm going up on a par 3, I'll do that and then put the ball on that and have like a little turf tee. But on the occasions when I actually do use a tee, say with a 3-wood, I am just putting that tee all the way into the ground, so that golf ball is just hovering above the ground level. The only reason I use a tee is I do not want that ball to sit in a depression. I want to have a clean hit, effectively. What is the difference when it comes to tees throughout the whole entire bag, and how much difference a tee can make or not? Right, so all the shots are now hit with the gap wedge with a tee. Let's flick over data sets for the gap wedge without a tee, and then we'll see what differences are between hitting with a tee or without. Right, more shots hit. Let's go do all the other bits and pieces off of camera, and let's go to the computer and see what the differences are between using a tee or not. Right, I've done a load of shots with the gap wedge, the 7-iron and the 3-wood to try and encompass all the loft differences. I've got some information to show which is quite interesting. Now this is a pattern that I have seen in me, obviously, yes, and also better players in general. This is not to say that this information I'm about to show is not for only for this type of golfer and not at all for the high handicap. The high handicap golfer, I have taught many high handicap golfers in the past that have got a really good understanding of strike. They've just got a very poor understanding of face to path, and they hit it everywhere. Bad chippers, bad putters, that kind of idea. But they've got a very good understanding of strike. And this is what I'm finding when you go down to more of the better player. Their striking capability, their understanding of vertical low point is so much better. So then the ball being on a tee doesn't affect them in the same way that a ball being on a tee it does for an amateur golfer, as in a more varied strike golfer. For the vast majority, and it's true, for the vast majority of golfers, use a tee. If you can use a tee any way you can, you will get a benefit on average. When you're on a tee, if you're going to hit it high on the face, because the ball's up on a tee, you're not going to be hitting the ground first. If you're going to hit high on the face and there is no tee, the only way you can hit high on the face when the ball's on the ground is by you going through the floor first. And I think everyone would agree, if you go through the floor first, it's bad because that's a fat chunk, duff, all those words, which means floor first. Somewhat of the number that you're going to get, the 12 yards extra gain in distance and 5% more greens in regulation on average through the whole golf clubs, etc., is because of that. The propensity for amateur golfers to want to hit the ground, or at least interact with the ground first, is a detriment to their distance, and obviously detriment then to their greens in regulation. So by putting on a tee, they are far better off. Gap wedge first. I've got the ball compare and the club compare, the graphical stuff, because you don't really want to see tabular stuff. It's a bit boring. So effectively you get all the information that you can do from the graphical stuff, which is far more pleasant on the eye. You can see straight away by the yellow and the red, the yellow goes further than the red by 4 yards. Also, the dispersion patterns are basically identical. There's not much difference between those whatsoever. I'm not surprised it's a gap wedge, but there is a 4-yard gain. Now, if you look at the descent angles on the graph on the left-hand side, there's not much. They're basically exactly the same. Peak heights a fraction more with the without tee. So, why is that happening? Well, if you look at the ball speed, I am a couple mile an hour faster with the without tee than with tee. I am hitting it slightly, launching lower by less than a degree, but it's going 4 yards longer. If you go over to the club side of it, you can see automatically I'm swinging 1.3 mile an hour faster when the ball's on the ground. I feel I can attack it more when the golf ball is on the ground. You can also see my dynamic loft has fractionally come down. It's only half a degree, so it doesn't make so much of a difference with a wedge than it does with my other golf clubs. And I feel I can attack it slightly more down. It's now 6.1 down rather than 5.3. So I'm hitting slightly more down. I am delivering slightly less loft, and I feel I can attack the golf ball more when the ball is on the ground. And so therefore you get a slight gain in ball dynamics, for a little bit more in yardage. About 114 is my normal average. I'm 1 yard off, but effectively that is it. So for me, gap wedge, always there's a gain. You can look at the strike pattern on there. You can see vertically I'm slightly higher on the face with a tee than I am the yellow, slightly lower on the face. If we go over to a 7 iron, there is an interesting one on the 7 iron. I haven't counted this miss in there because I want to showcase something. You can see with the tee shot, my ball speed is slightly down, my launch angle is up, my spin is slightly up, my carry is slightly down. If you go without a tee, my ball speed is up, my launch is lower, my total RPM spin, my back is lower, and of course I am going about 8 yards longer. Why? Well, if you look at the clubhead speeds, again, I feel that I can attack the golf ball without a tee a fraction harder. It's 0.7 of a mile an hour, but it's not a lot. But you can see my dynamic loft changes. I'm 2 degrees less loft with without a tee than a tee, and my attack angle goes 5.6 down to 3.7 down. So I'm 2 degrees more down when the golf ball is on the deck. I feel I'm attacking it more. You can see by the strike, within reason, they are basically on top of each other, so it hasn't actually made any vertical strike difference to me, but you can see straight away the differences in flight. Okay, with a tee, the golf ball will go higher and it will descend a fraction steeper, but I'm well past, I'm nearly 50 degrees descent angle with both of them, so I'm far past needing any descent angle differences. You can see by dispersion rings though, I am tighter with the without tee. My dispersion front to back is much tighter. Left and right, there's not much in it, let's be honest, because left and right is me, not the tee. But from the vertical point of view, I am tighter dispersion without a tee than with. Remember, this is an 8mm tee. This is not a massive tee, it's 8mm, it's not massive. There is one thing I want to show you on here very, very quickly. This is what happens when you hit one slightly high on the face. Again, this is a capture that you see commonly amongst amateur golfers, the fact that it's 10mm high on the face. If you're going to do this with a tee, you'll get away with it. It's carried 140 yards as opposed to 160 something. Effectively, we've lost 20 or so yards. Yes, we have. But if you're going to hit that shot, when the ball's on the deck, and this is commonplace amongst amateurs when you do hit high on the face like this, you're not just going to lose 20 yards or 22 yards. You are going to be losing a boatload of distance. You're going to be losing 70 because of the fact you're going to take a cubic yard of wherever you are in the world out of the ground and the golf ball is going to trundle forward. Have you ever had that time when the divot has nearly gone as far as the golf ball? That is one of them. And so you've got to be careful when you... So I can get away with that shot, doing that shot, if I wanted to, because obviously the golf ball's on a tee. I'm still going to lose distance. That's why I don't use a tee, or I use a very, very small tee, because I do not like that variation in where my vertical low point needs to be is where my golf club is. Let's go to the 3-wood. So instantly, let's go by the top one first. You can see that is the ball dynamics. It's going in with a tee and without a tee. If I go without a tee, it's 12 yards longer. Already, dispersion patterns are fairly similar, let's be honest, and they're fairly slightly off to the right. That's where my 3-wood goes. As soon as I get my shaft goes longer, I have this propensity to want to leave the face baby open to a path slightly across, and I'll get my little fade. It's predictable, I know it, it's fine. But if you have a look at the differences in dynamics, ball speed is not that much in it. There's, yeah, not much in it, 0.6 of a mile an hour. Launch though, look at the launch differences, 14.4 against 11.1. So the with tee is launching higher. I actually know this pattern and I will use this to my advantage if I'm on a par 3 of around about 230 yards. I know I can put my 3-wood on there at 235 or so, and I can get that 3-wood stopping with a tee because I know it launches higher, it spins slightly more, it descends really well. It will stop at a green at 235, 240 yards. Wonderful. I know I've got that shot in my arsenal because I've practiced it. When you're on the deck though, you can see my launch angle comes down, my spin rate comes down, my carry goes up by 12 yards. When the driver's not working, and believe me, sometimes the driver does not work, happens to us all, I can use the 3-wood with a tiny, tiny tee, like effectively being on the ground, and I can pump it out there 260, 270 quite easily with a 3-wood. So you have to understand your patterns. Why is that happening? Well, you can see my clubhead speed within 0.7 of a mile an hour is basically the same, although still fractionally faster when I'm not having a tee. I feel like I can attack it harder. My dynamic loft decreases by 2.5 degrees. You can see my attack angle comes down by another 2 or so degrees. And that's because I'm hitting down on the golf ball. When I've got the golf ball on a tee, I feel like I can pick it off there. When I've got the golf ball on the ground, I'm hitting down at that 3-wood. And so, yes, it does suffer in peak height and descent angle, but it's guaranteeing a strike and it's guaranteeing that flight. I know the patterns within my 3-wood. I use them to my advantage when it comes to playing golf. I don't think enough golfers really spend enough time understanding their patterns with a tee or not, because it does change your flight. And it can add a little bit more peak height, and it can add a little bit more descent angle. That's been known throughout time, that people have noticed when they put the golf ball on a tee, they hit the golf ball higher and then it stops quicker as well because it's coming at a steeper descent angle. The only thing they sometimes don't understand is, depending on where they hit it, it can actually take some distance away if you are a better golfer. I know my patterns. I have done this throughout passage of time. When I obviously done the episode for the From Stats to Strokes, I knew that when I'm doing it, this is going to be very much so directed for the fat part of the triangle of golfers. The top part, the ones which are the better players, or at least the handicap golfers which got a very, very good understanding of strike. You need to understand this caveat side of things, don't just take it as a blanket. Understand what your own personal individual strike patterns are, and so if you need to tailor the rule, the guidance, whether to use a tee or not, I would always still use a tee. Even when I say here without a tee, if I've got an opportunity, I'm putting that golf ball on a tiny tee, like the smallest little tee, so I can get it off the ground. All I'm trying to do is basically stop that golf ball sitting with its own depression of the grass, getting it off so I can actually hit a clean strike. That's the only reason I use a tee, but it's tiny. Hope you liked the video. If you did, thumbs up. Go on YouTube, like so do I. Down there is a subscribe button. It's free. It's great for the channel if you could subscribe, so thank you. And next to that is a bell icon. That's a notification bell. If you click that one, that will notify you next time I upload another video. So I hope you're well, and we'll see you again soon.